else here. And I realized it was not easy. Reflecting back to 25 years of Beijing Declaration, it has been quite a journey with challenges, but also with significant improvement. Back then, women were considered creatures existing for no professional purpose. Women were looked like an industry to produce babies, an industry for kitchen produce, an industry for entertainment. That was back then. 25 years later, it is a different story. Women now, we know what we want, where we are, where we want to get, and how to get there. We may not get 100% of what we want, but still, I believe in future generations we will achieve that, because the clarity of how things should be done that we have today is remarkable. The confidence we have built over the years is enough to completely turn things around if we consciously work as one team with one goal to achieve the greatest achievement there is under the sun. Challenges will continue to be there. However, they can only make us strong if we see opportunities through them. At KCB Bank, we are saying, "See her rise." This is our slogan for this year's Women's Day. We are saying so because we believe that women have greatest potential, they are capable, can run their own businesses and sustainable, etc. We believe that women are now and future CEOs and chairmen of organizations and presidents of countries. They are the mother of the world. Without women, there will be no true story to be told. Without women, men will struggle, not only socially, but also professionally. However, the same way that they need us to succeed, we need them alongside with us for true stories to be told. So what then? At KCB Bank, we have a conscious drive to ensure gender balance as we recruit new employees. During interviews, women come out strong. Most times, I'm saying most times. All they need is to get that opportunity to practically showcase their capabilities. Please hear me right. We are not favoring women. We employ them because they are competitive. And for us, gender balance goes beyond recruitment level. We have mentorship programs for female employees just to nurture, encourage, and bring them up to speed to take managerial positions. With this program, we are saying, look, you have potential. Look, you can do it. Look, you are the greatest leader there is. Now we see more women at top management level and board level. In recent years, we have had a woman chairperson for KCB Bank. This is an icon lady that we all know, and she is none other than Mrs. Zura Muro. Madam Zura, we are honored for the precious years you gave KCB Bank, the governance practice we enjoyed, the support you extended and still extending today. Indeed, we are grateful. Thank you very much. Knowing that women empowerment cannot just end with KCB Bank, neither it is an overnight thing, we introduced Tujiajiri Women Empowerment Program. With this program, we train women in classrooms. We practically offer this training to their sites or call it businesses to ensure the knowledge imparted in classroom is put in practice. And we don't end there. We also offer financial support to them. We use media to advocate women empowerment because we know that someone out there needs just to be reminded or to motivated to take a step forward. We have products tailored to support women, such as Tujiajiri Women Current Account, Chama Solution for Women Groups, etc. This is just among other products that are there to support women and those in business and at individual level. I will end up by saying this. As a woman, you exist for a purpose. You came to this world to accomplish a certain purpose, something that must be done in a unique way. It is a gift that no one else can offer, and it matters to you, to me, and the people that we love, and including the planet. So rise, go ahead and do it. Thank you.
Well, Christine started off by saying she was wondering what she would actually say. Brilliantly said. Our hands once again. What a wonderful presentation. Truly thought-provoking. It's our great pleasure to welcome NMB and the Chief Shared Services, Nyuata Mejoli is representing NMB. Karibu sana with our hands. Karibu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Eco-gender is not an event. Eco-gender is a process. In project management, we can compare it with a program. We all have a role to play. I am a living testimony on the effort done by NMB. Prior to May 2015, we did not have a woman in EXCO. And we had opportunity to have a woman as MD in May 2015. She challenged us big time. I was among them. I was head of department for more than 5 years. And I was not ready at all to move an inch to any other role, either internally or externally. She challenged us. So in May 2016, Women Arise Forum was born. Mission is to foster gender equity advancement, mentorship, and leadership opportunities to challenge women to get out of their comfort zone. There are different activities which we have achieved as a bank. Number one, we have a board member who is a patron to the forum. Number two, in our management training program, we ensure there is a ratio of 50-50 between female and male. We conduct different capacity building. We have different programs like leadership training by WWB, women-to-women mentorship. So if you are a leader, you are required to ensure that you mentor another woman in an organization, and it is structured, not just you wake up and you decide to be a mentor. And then we have different programs like Female Future Program. So far we have managed to send our ladies, 6 of them, to this program. There are a number of awareness sessions to highlight the importance of, at least to give women confidence that it is possible. It might be a challenge, but it is possible. Last year, we started a child care space, which is nursing room, all in effort to have a family-friendly guideline to support our staff. Currently in NMB, the ratio between female to male overall is 48 to 52, which is almost like 50-50. However, in managerial position, it's still a challenge. The ratio is 30 to 70. It is improvement from 3% in 2016. So 3% improvement in 3-4 years, it's something. You cannot compare it with nothing. Lastly, it doesn't mean having a forum has addressed all the challenges. We still have challenges. The main challenge which we see is lack of confidence. This is a challenge which we really need to struggle together as a society to make sure that women have more confidence. As mentioned before, eco-gender is a process. In any process, there must be a number of activities. Us in NMB will continue to narrow the gender gap. Thank you.
It was wonderful to hear about the confidence issue. I hope it will stimulate itself in our discussions a little bit later on. Asante sana for your presentation from NMB. And with the opening statements as testimonies, if something strikes you or you do take a picture, ladies and gentlemen, we have free Wi-Fi available. If you go into your browser, please enter private, the word private, in your voucher ID field. And if you do take any pictures, please propagate it on your social media platforms with the hashtag Lindam IWD 2020. That's easy, isn't it? Lindam IWD 2020. So please make use of the service. And since getting to equality, getting to an equity point is a process, let me welcome my good friend, my brother, Lauren Wanakunu, the MD, MSD, to the podium. Is he here? Yes, there you are, sir. Karibu sana. Let's put our hands together as a thought leader and on the same subject. Karibu sana, kaka.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. When I was first invited, to me, when it's an issue about women, it's very personal for me. Maybe before I start telling you what we do at MSD, I want to give you a personal story in half a second, or half a minute, sorry. When I was 2 years old, my father died. And my mother raised me, and she postponed her life until when I was 10 years old. That's when she thought she could get married again. And when I was 28, she died of cancer. And so for me, anything that has to do with women is personal. It's not just about things and charts and statistics about women empowerment. So she put her life on hold. She was a very young woman. She had just been married. After 3 years, the husband got an accident and died. And that husband was my father. So, and then she died of cancer, cervical cancer, when I was 28 years old. And the job that I do is to make sure that the hospital that she was admitted, which is Ocean Road, that has got a specialized, highest level of scientific equipment, that some other women that will get a certain disease that befell my mother will never have such an issue again. And I'm proud to tell you, Ocean Road is doing a fantastic job saving women's life. Now, after that emotional start, let me go back to being the Director General of MSD. So my name is Laurian. I'm Laurian Rugambo Bwanakunu. I'm the Director General of Medical Stores Department. I've been in this job for almost 5 years now. When I was invited to talk about our experience, MSD is a public institution, and managing a public institution has its own challenges, but we try to kind of mirror the public and private. And I'm lucky that before I joined the government, I used to work in the international organization. I remember Mama. Women's Day for us is very, very important. From tomorrow, my management is going around to the zones to celebrate with women. Here in Dar es Salaam, we normally every year we set a date whereby during Women's Day, men give present and appreciate the job that is done by women in our office. And if you can, you'll see us on Twitter. And because of that, we have also set a place, because there are some of the environment that does not give chance for women to excel. Women who get pregnant and who are breastfeeding, we have set a room specifically for them to have a babysitting and also to breastfeed if they need to. So because of Dar es Salaam, the way how it is, someone may be living in Buza, but he works at MSD at Keko. By the way, our office is at Keko. We are in the middle of Tuko Uswahili in Pari. It's the only building that looks okay. But the road to my office is tarmac, so it's fine. So we have set that, and through that, if you have been following what Association of Tanzania Employers have provided as an award, we have won one of the best wellness and also family-friendly in the public sector. So we won that. We are on top of everyone. And finally, I'm told I have only 3 minutes. We have a forum for women at work and their leadership. But also everything we do, which is our core function, procurement, distribution, and storage of medicine. And I would encourage you, all of you here, we set what we call a delivery pack for women. Now, we're not talking about the employees of MSD, women in Tanzania in general. We decided some women would go to deliver in a hospital with kanga, or they will be asked to buy stuff, very simple stuff, that women need during delivery. We have a delivery pack that was meant for women, and it has got about 11 items in there. And we sell them at 21,000 only. And the government is distributing them across the country, but also we urge private sector to make sure that you can buy and provide as your social responsibility. And the government of Zanzibar, for example, they have decided to use that as a model. They provide that free of charge to all the women who deliver at the, because it's about dignity. It's about dignity. We are not talking about, this is just, it's about having a woman have a clean place where she can have a delivery, and where when the child is born can be wrapped up in a very clean and hygienic environment. So, and the job that we do to distribute medicine to and medical equipment to about 7,500 health facilities across the country, our largest beneficiaries are women. And everything that we do, we have that in mind. And on a final note, personally, as a Director General, it's still personal to me to make sure that no woman should die during labor. And I have to make sure that the commodities are there at the health facilities, at the local. When you call, we have the lowest level is a dispensary in the village. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I've tried to speak very fast, so to make up for 3 minutes. Asante sana.
Asante sana kaka for the personal touch and the touching story, the fantastic work you do at MSD, and of course at national level. Nashukuru sana. Of course, your great humor is also always appreciated, kaka. Asante. So, our sponsors, I believe TICTS may not have a word this morning. You will? Okay, very well. Thank you for acknowledging that. And CRDB also acknowledged. So allow me to please welcome MultiChoice. And okay, let me mention the name, and I'll tell you some also exciting news as we are going live right now. Walking up is Ngwitika Mwakahesia, representing the MD. Please put your hands together. Ladies and gentlemen, please make use of the hashtag. We are live on MCL Digital.
Good morning. I am honored to speak today representing the MD, Mrs. Jacqueline Woiso. This morning she's on her way to Uganda. She has been invited to celebrate with MultiChoice Uganda International Women's Day. So she sends her greetings. Okay, for MultiChoice Tanzania, we practice gender equity, and we would like to share some testimonials and things that we are proud of. You are more than free to take up these initiatives in different organizations and practice them. I've taken a lot of pointers from MSD. Thank you for that. So first of all, for MultiChoice Tanzania, 46% of our employees are women. We take a conscious effort to recognize women as parts of our employees, and we have a target of achieving 50% of our employees to be women. For the senior leaders, the ExCos, out of the 7, we have 3 who are women. And it's quite exciting, even in the conversations that come up from the boardrooms. You can easily tell how women are passionate, dedicated to the work. We are proud to be women, and I'm proud to be part of the team. MultiChoice Tanzania also has a leadership program for women. We have partnered with the Tanzania Employees Association, which collaborates with Sesame. For this year alone, we have identified 4 women to go into the program. It's a program for a year, and it's a mentorship and a leadership program. 4 of the employees, which are women, 3 have already started the course. One will start next year because for this year she has been seconded to Ethiopia. I thought you were supposed to get a clap for that. Another key initiative that we have done has multi-choice group. We have a women's forum which empowers and recognizes women leaders. We also have coaching and mentoring that is done to women, and we are super proud of the initiative, and we embrace it, and we will continue embracing it. Last but not least, we are also proud for MultiChoice Tanzania and MultiChoice as a group as well for recognizing and actually appointing a female MD, which is Jacqueline Woiso. So that tells much of the group's dedication to women equity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good work, safi kabisa, and particularly the appointment of Jacqueline, noteworthy. Asante sana. Please may I also acknowledge Standard Chartered Bank as one of our sponsors. They do not have representation here this morning, so I will move on to the final testimony. Oh, you are here? Oh, you are. Are you speaking? Do you have a word? Not at all, but we appreciate. 2 words. Okay, I'll be with you in a second. Let's do text first. It's good to know. It's good to know. Asante sana. So, from texts, may I please welcome Kisa George, KICD Manager. You with your hands, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Kisa George. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here to represent TICS, which is part of Hutchison Port Holdings. I'll say it very briefly because I was not prepared to say anything for today. But on behalf of TICS, I'll just say some few words about women involvement in TICS. TICS, in short, is Tanzania International Container Terminal, which is dealing with the discharging and loading of containers. TICS recognize gender issues, and in recent years, TICS have been employed women in operating heavy equipment, which used to be operated by men only. So that's it's a good recognition to a company like TICS. In Swahili, we say makuli. So this is a great achievement in bridging the gap in port industry. Also, the number of senior positions in TICS has been increased, which influencing a lot in making decision making as a whole. Thank you very much. Asante.
Asante TICS, nashukuru sana. And so I took a long walk for Standard Chartered Bank. It was worthwhile. Karibu sana, mama yetu Pamela Nukia, tafadhali head of audit. Karibu sana. We truly appreciate having a quick word from you. So I note we're all learning from each other, and there's something I will also share with you. I picked it up from your table. Karibu sana.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pamela Nkia from Stanchart. I was not meant to say anything today morning, but I must take this opportunity to just thank the women who've gone ahead of us, myself particularly, the women who've championed this cause. I hear we have someone who was there at Beijing. We really appreciate, and I'll give some statistics from Stanchart. And I think this is part of the efforts that you've made. So right now we stand at 52% of staff from Stanchart being women. We have 50-50 at leadership level. We have 40% of our exco being female. So all those efforts, those are steps that are really big, great steps that have been taken, and it's a great testimony to give here. But I must say we still have a long way to go, especially outside in the society, in our families, when you still have cases where parents say, okay, that performance is okay, being a girl child. Meaning that if it was a boy, that performance would not be okay, but because you're a girl, okay, you've really done your best. I must say the differences between us, men and women, are biological, not intelligence. We are all intelligent, and I think it is time that when we are measured, you just don't say, for a woman it's okay. No. For a human being, is it okay? We are equal. Thank you.
Very well said. Let's put our hands together to all our sponsors and associated partners. Asante sana, it allows us to move on. But when I went to the table at the back, I was shown something that looks like this. I know this is far away, but you can actually search for it. It says an equal world is an enabled world. And the hashtag is each for equal. And there's actually, yeah, everybody knows how to do it. If, for those who know, please stand up and show us. Show us. Show us how to do it. There we go. All right. Can we all try that a little bit before we get into the presentation, eh? All right. Hey, that looks good for the picture, and it looks good in the room as well. So the right hand up, I believe, left. All right, that looks good, huh? Safi kabisa. We learn something all the time. Super. Thank you for the note. And now, ladies and gentlemen, after the testimonies, it's my great pleasure to welcome our first presentation this morning, our keynote presentation this morning, and it has been ready for a very long time. Mama Fortunata Temu, please put your hands together for her as she's very ready to engage with us this morning. Karibu sana. The presentation at the breakfast seminar is, well, may I allow you to continue, Mama?
Thank you very much.
Okay, your mic is doing very well. Karibu sana.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Okay, that sounds well.
I'm very excited to see every one of you here today as part of celebrating the International Women's Day. And I must say, I'm privileged to engage with you in this conversation to reflect about Beijing Plus 25. And as you know, Beijing is where all these testimonies that we had this morning began. It doesn't mean that nothing was happening before Beijing, but at least Beijing stepped up the game, and we are going to see how. But before Beijing, there were other international world women conferences, starting with the one that took place in Mexico in 1975. And the objective of that conference, which was organized by the United Nations, was to just discuss about women issues. Women were just seen as the recipients of development programs, and they were not really being involved in development. So the United Nations deliberately organized this conference to just pay attention to women issues and also to come up with a plan on how to address the women issues. And mark you, I'm not even talking about gender. I'm talking about women issues, because that conference was about women issues. And the outcome of that conference was a world plan of action which prioritized 3 themes, which are equality, development, and peace. And every country was supposed to do something in order to promote equality for women so that they can participate in development and also world peace. And for those of you who can recall, that was the time also when there was a lot of discussion around peace building, and there was also discussion around disarmament. It was the time of the Cold War, for those of you who recall. And after Mexico, there was another conference, Copenhagen, and the purpose of the Copenhagen conference was to take stock of what had been done since the Mexico conference. And also during the Mexico conference, UN also declared the UN Women Decade for Women. So as you can see, Copenhagen was in 1980. It means it was mid-decade, and there was now time to do an assessment to see how much has been done. And at Copenhagen, what came out very clearly is that women were yet to really enjoy their rights, and especially rights related to inheritance, rights related to nationality, and also rights related to custody of children, among others. But rights was the main issue in Copenhagen. After Copenhagen, there was another conference which was held in the Africa region and in Nairobi, which is a neighboring country in Kenya. And in that conference now, they were now looking at what has been achieved throughout the 10 years, throughout the UN Women Decade. And again, it was found that not much progress had been registered. And as a result, there was a need now to strategize even more by coming up with the Nairobi forward-looking strategies. And these are the strategies now to intensify the efforts, to be able now to see more progress in as far as equality for women was concerned and their participation in development and peace at all levels. Now that is the background to Beijing. So 10 years later, in 1995, the Beijing conference was organized, but it took 2.5 years to organize that conference, which means at regional level, every region, Latin America, Asia, Africa, they had their own preparatory processes whereby they were taking stock of what they've been doing in the region. And after that, there was now a draft platform of action which was sent to the 39th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, which normally sits in New York. Before also it used to happen in Vienna. But the CSW, which is a creation of the United Nations, was now used as the preparatory session to consolidate the inputs from the region and come up with a draft platform of action to be now sent to Beijing to be discussed and negotiated and reach a consensus. And I can tell you it wasn't easy in New York to come up with a draft because of the diversity of opinions, diversity of, religious considerations, cultural considerations. So the draft had a lot of brackets. For those of you who have participated in UN meetings, when I say brackets, I think you understand what I mean. It means it was a language that was not agreed by all. So all those things, the things that were not fully agreed by all were put in brackets so that now in Beijing they will be discussed and a consensus will be reached. So after reaching a consensus, the draft was adopted with 12 critical areas of concern, as you can see there. Can you read that from the projection? Can you read it? So that I'll save time by not repeating. So after the adoption of the platform of action, Tanzania prioritized 4 broad areas, as Madam Zuhura had said. enhancement of legal capacity, economic empowerment, education training, as well as political leadership and decision making. Now, before I can go to show what Tanzania has done and also compare with other countries within the region and also outside the region, let us see the investment that went into making Beijing happen. As we can see, Tanzania was also privileged to have our own Madam Gertrude Mongella, who was the Assistant Secretary General and the one who was in charge now of moderating that big conference. And the people who attended, official delegation had 17,000 participants. Now, when we say official delegation, it means these are now the delegation of the government. In addition to that, you had 30,000 activists. Now, these are participants from NGOs. In addition, also, there were media, and here I didn't put the figure, but there were around 3,000 from media. So you can imagine the amount of human resource that went into pulling off the Beijing conference. But it was more than 150 countries that participated. In Tanzania, we had more than 100 participants in the official delegation, and not to mention members who attended as part of the NGO delegation. And as I said before, it took more than 2 years of preparations, and in Beijing, it was a discussion around the draft, which took about 2 weeks. And after Beijing, there was also other activities to disseminate information about the draft platform so that everybody could now take part in implementing the Beijing conference. And from the testimonies, it is very encouraging to see how even the private sector is fully engaged to implement the Beijing platform for action. Now, what has been done? On part of the government, the main thing that the government did was also to have conducive policy and institutional frameworks that would now allow for the implementation of the Beijing platform. And looking at the Vision 2025, the vision is to make sure that by 2025, Tanzania would have attained gender equality and women's empowerment. And 2025 is just around the corner. And from the discussion in the room and also what I'm going to share with you, I don't know if we are really going to attain gender equality and women empowerment by 2025. That is like slightly less than 5 years from now. And also, we have the women and gender policy and its implementation strategy, which basically now provides guidance on how to mainstream gender, not only in policies, but also in programs, in plans, and all the interventions that would make now gender equality become a reality. And the national machinery, this is now the ministry which is responsible to coordinate all these efforts to ensure that gender is integrated in all those policies, programs, plans, and all other interventions. As part of the institutional mechanism, the government also, ministries, departments, and agencies have what they call gender focal persons, and these are people who are now supposed to make sure within the MDAs, gender is integrated. And not only in government where you have gender focal persons, but also in institutions, you have gender focal persons, in NGOs, and also in development agencies, you have gender focal persons. And these normally meet in the gender mainstreaming working group for macro policies, where they discuss, they share information, and that is now the platform which is used to feed into policies and plans whenever there are such plans which are being developed to make sure gender is integrated. Now going to the 4 areas, they are broad enough, but starting with education, a lot has been done, and I'm going to only mention the current trends, and I'm not going to go back 25 years because a lot has been done, but it suffices to say that I'll only mention those things that are very current, like the abolition of school fees and contributions in primary school as a strategy to ensure gender parity in primary and secondary education. Also, in terms of infrastructure, there is also infrastructure which is conducive and friendly to make it possible for girls with their special needs of being female. And I think we are all adults in the room, and I don't need to mention what these are. But at least now, that is a strategy also to make sure girls stay in school and they can also take care of themselves. And also you can see, because of the different mechanisms to promote gender parity, we can also see some of the results, like the primary and secondary school enrollment has almost reached gender parity, as you can see from there. You can see in primary, the enrollment of girls has even surpassed the enrollment of boys. But in secondary school, you can see it's almost, the gender parity can clearly be seen here. But as you go to the higher level in tertiary education, you can see now the girls dropping. You can see it very clearly, the girls drop. And I think that is where now the panelists will come in and tell us, okay, what can be done in order to step up and make sure we have gender parity, even at the tertiary level. Coming to economic empowerment, there are many, many initiatives that has been done, and even among the, even within the room, the private sector has done quite a lot, and I don't need to repeat that. But just to mention a few, there are a number of empowerment funds that have been established, and some of those are even targeting women specifically. In addition to that, we have economic groupings, the VICOBA, and you can see the numbers there. They speak for themselves, and out of 200,000 VICOBA with a membership of about 4.5 million members, 80% of those are women. So that is, it goes out to show that there is a lot that is being done to empower women economically. And in terms of procurement, according to the law and guidelines, 30% is also set aside to ensure women also participate in procurement to supply goods and services in the government, and not only women but also youth. And at local government level, 10% of the revenue is supposed to be provided as interest-free loans to women and youth and people with disability. I'll go very fast now. Now, looking at the current situation, land, which is the biggest asset, considering that majority of Tanzanians live in rural area where agriculture is the main activity. You can see not only in Tanzania but in Africa generally, 60% women of farmers make up 60% of employed women in sub-Sahara in agriculture. But we can see who owns the land. It is the men mostly who own the land. And in comparing Tanzania and I tried to compare Tanzania, Niger, and Uganda, you can see that, of course, Tanzania is well ahead of Niger, but Uganda is ahead of Tanzania when it comes to women owning land. And of course, men own land, and you can see the percentage there. About 44% of men are the one who own land, and only 39% of the land is jointly owned by both men and women. Now, looking at the annual cost of gender gap because the gender gap has a cost, and you being in business, I think this is the language you will appreciate more and intensify your efforts towards bridging the gender gap. Because of gender gap, Tanzania is losing on annual basis US dollars 105 million. That's a lot of money. Compare with Uganda, which is losing about 67 million US dollars per annum. So it means that we need to save that money which is getting lost by bridging the gender gap, especially at workplaces and at business. Coming to women legal rights, I'll go very fast because I know one of the discussants is a formidable lawyer in this country, and she's going to really highlight on the legal rights. But it suffices to say that the government has done a lot in terms of revising the law, in terms of law reform, starting with the land laws, which were many, but then they were consolidated now, and we have two main legislations, which is the Land Act and the Village Land Act. And the Village Land Act is now enabling women to have more rights to own land in their own capacity, and also to control it and make decision on the land. And regarding legal literacy, and thanks to activities and work of NGOs and others, and in support of by the support of development partners and also the government, a lot has been done to sensitize not only women but also men regarding legal rights of women, so that women now can access their rights, and they can know their rights, and they can also access their rights. The government very recently passed the Legal Aid Act of 2017, which is now enabling women who cannot afford the exorbitant legal fees. And I'm sorry for the legal practitioners in the room, but it's a reality. Legal services are not cheap, they're expensive. But because the government has seen that, that is why it passed the 2017 Legal Aid Act, so that those who need legal services and yet they cannot afford, they can be given legal aid. There are so many other things, like increasing the minimum age of marriage, which currently, according to the Law of Marriage Act, stands at 15 years for girls. But there have been a High Court decision which was challenged, but the High Court upheld that decision to show that, okay, 15 years is contrary even to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which Tanzania is party to, and 15 years is a girl of 15 years is a child, and getting into marriage, I think we understand marriage is not for the fainted heart. It's difficult, and children need to be protected. So there's a lot going on now to make sure that section which sets the minimum age for marriage at 15 is revised, and to match with the convention and also to match with the law of the child. Other efforts have been done to also address violence against women and children, and a lot has been done. We have the National Plan of Action. There was one that ended in 2015, and now we have another one, the recent one, which will end in 2022. So we see a lot of efforts. And in the National Plan of Action, one of the factors that contribute to violence is negative social norms, which condone violence against women. So a lot of efforts now need to be done to change mindset. Of course, it's not an easy thing to do overnight, but it is something that is doable. And in addition to that, in every police stations in the districts, there is what you call police gender and children desks. And these have been very instrumental in supporting especially women and children who have been abused. And the police who man those desks They've undergone special training so that they cannot look intimidating and they can be accommodating and they can support instead of, intimidating. Nobody wants to come into encounter with police. So by having these desks, which are very friendly, even reporting of violence has increased, and even investigation is being done more swiftly, and more cases are going to court. And also there is one-stop centers that have been established, although there are not many, but at least a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, isn't it? We currently have about 12 one-stop centers which have different services under one roof: medical services and also psychosocial services, counseling, as well as legal services, including police and investigation services under one roof to support people or women and children who have been abused. And the current situation in some of those areas which need to be changed, including female genital mutilation, and as we know, under the current criminal law, penal laws, before, in 1998, there was a law that was passed. It was popularly known as SOSPA, but now it has been incorporated in the penal code. Female genital mutilation is a criminal offense when it is performed to a woman or a girl who is under 18 years. It is a criminal offense. And also the SOSPA has additional offenses which were not offenses before 1998, like sexual harassment. So if there is any sexual harassment in the places of business, in places of work, and everywhere else, including higher learning institutions, where sextortion is also said to be practiced, it is a criminal offense and it can be dealt with under the penal code. But again, we look at the situation in 1996, immediately after Beijing. We can see female genital mutilation was practiced. The prevalence was 18% according to official statistics, the Tanzania Demographic and Health Survey. But according to the very recent TDHS, the Demographic and Health Survey, it has really dropped to almost 10%. And you can see the regions that are notorious for this practice. You can see them in red. And the one in pink, this is where also there is prevalence, but at a relatively smaller scale. And the ones in green, these are areas where the practice is almost non-existent. So you can see that there is a lot of changes when it comes to that practice which violates women's rights. Gender-based violence also, according to the Demographic and Health Survey, it is still rampant, and you can see, according to the TDHS, about 42% of women have been abused in their lifetime. And the types of violence that are common include, as you can see them, physical sexual violence, 30%, child marriage, 37%, female genital mutilation, around 15%. Child marriage is still being practiced, and also it's because of poverty. And when you have poverty and you have children, girl children who are not in school, you can imagine the parents can very easily give away their children to get married, those who are below the age of 15 years. And you can see the regions that child marriage is commonly practiced: Shinyanga, Tabora, Dodoma, Mara. And in some areas, including Dar es Salaam, it is practiced but not as rampant. And child marriage is more rampant in rural areas. Inheritance inequalities, when you compare with our neighboring countries, Rwanda and Kenya, you can see Tanzania, sons and daughters do not have equal inheritance rights, and I believe one of the panelists is going to amplify on this. When it comes to female and male surviving spouses, whether they have equal rights to inherit assets, definitely in Tanzania they don't. But in Rwanda, you can see these are Rwanda nowadays is the trendsetter in many things, especially when it comes to gender equality. And Kenya is trying, is a bit ahead of Tanzania. Political participation and decision making, you can see the trend. Our parliament currently has 391 members of parliament, and out of them, 145 are women MPs, while male MPs are 346, which makes women more than, slightly more than 35%. But if we look now at the trends from before Beijing and after Beijing, we can see there has been a steady, slow but steady progress. Before Beijing, you can see the parliament had 10%, 10.5% female representation. After Beijing, in the election of 1995, we can see it has slightly increased to 13%, and it went up again to 21, and again 30, and 35, or almost 36%. If not in the world, with a female vice president. And we can see how motherly she is. She's very inspiring, she's very encouraging, she's very, you know, she has that mother. And you can see when we are advocating for female leadership, there are a lot of good traits which women bring into the positions. And those are something that we miss in men. But it's not the men's fault that they are how they are. It's because of the socialization, the way we are socialized. So for businesses that are here, please keep on increasing the number of women in the leadership positions, and you are going to reap the dividends for that. Looking at the cabinet, these are the trends in 2013, 2014. You can see we are nowhere near gender parity. We are nowhere close. The ministers, the percentage of women was 31, while men were 69, and deputies 24 to 76. The ratio, I mean, it shows we were not anywhere near gender parity. The only positions within the executive, the public service executive positions, the only positions with close to gender parity is the deputy permanent secretaries, 41 to 59, and assistant commissioner, and even the numbers 2 to 3, 40 to 60, close to gender parity, and district administrative secretaries 40 to 60, but the rest we are nowhere near gender parity. So something needs to be done there. And these are the figures for 2013, 2014. In the judiciary, of course, this photo is not recent. As you can see, some of the judges have already retired. I can see Honorable Regina here. She has already retired. Even the Chief Justice, we now have another Chief Justice. This is an older picture, but at least we can see there are women there. And this is post-Beijing. We can see a lot of women who are now in the judiciary. In the Court of Appeal, out of 21 judges, 7 are women. And in the High Court, and these are recent figures, in the High Court, out of 72 judges, 27 are women. So even in the judiciary, we can see slow but steady increase of women. In other positions, of course, we have had women in senior positions within the United Nations. We even have our very own Madam Scholastica. Please, Madam, can you stand up so that we can recognize you? Yeah. If my memory serves me right, she was, Madam, you have had many, many positions within the UN, very senior positions. And if you allow me to make reference to, I don't know if I remember, you are Deputy Regional Director for UNDP in Southern and East Africa, right? For Africa, yes. But you were responsible for 22 countries. But before that, she was the resident representative of UNDP and resident coordinator of the UN system in South Africa, Lesotho, and I don't know where else. Madam, congratulations, and we are very proud of you. Now, coming to the private sector, we've heard a lot from you, and I need not repeat for the sake of time, but at least we can see the trend is that women make up 8.5% of Tanzanian CEOs. Much as we've had many, many good stories here about gender parity, 50-50, in your respective entities and organizations, but generally we are not yet there. But again, we should also clap for ourselves because globally, CEOs are in private sector, they only make, I think, 3%. 3%, right? 2%? Okay. You can see at least you are making some good progress when we compare with others. Now, that is me. I want to end my presentation with what I found to be very interesting. There was a study that was conducted in 2016 by Elevate Network. This is a network of professional women, and they are very much interested to see gender diversity in the private sector. And one of the questions that was asked was, what is the number one thing we need to do to achieve gender parity in business? And you can see some very interesting responses. One of the responses which caught my attention is that 33% said, get more women to positions of leadership. And I think that is a take-home. To me, that is a take-home for everybody who is in the room. And as I'm about to close my presentation, let me share a photo. That is me in Beijing. I was young, 25 years ago. Yeah, that is me. So we can see how a lot of water has passed under the bridge. We have changed as individuals, but as a country, we have also made a lot of progress. If it were possible to capture Tanzania and all that has been done before and after, and if we could have a photo like that of Tanzania, we could compare. The way you can compare me 25 years ago and the me of today. On that note, may I submit, and I thank you very much for your attention. I know it's not easy. You have a lot of work to do. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please let's all stand. A standing ovation. Tuma Fortunato Temu. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was super wonderful. You know, after putting our hands together like that, we still have to do this for her, right? Huh? Yeah? Safi Sana, we love the way you ended the presentation and taking us through the key areas that we wish to discuss. Being in Beijing, you know that there were 12 key areas. You picked out on about 5, if not 4, of the key areas, and I think the panelists that will come in, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to prime you before I introduce you. Just as Mama Fortunata did, I would like you to pick out the salient points, salient points within the presentation that you think are key. Because I could come up with 100 questions from the presentation, but if I prompt you, Dr. Blandina Kilama, and say, okay, 2 things that came out for you in the presentation, please deal with those, and your fellow panelists as well will pick up on those. So asante sana, Mama, that was truly fantastic. So we can move on. And we're moving on into the panel discussion. And after that, we will have our first-line discussants who will react, I believe, to the panel discussions as well as the presentation itself, and then we'll move over to the floor. So ladies and gentlemen, let's do that immediately. And let me introduce the panelists. And may you please take your seats in whichever chair you wish to on the stage. Dr. Blandina Kilama has practical experience in research, training and policy analysis. Let's put our hands together as she stands and comes up. The CEO of the Economic Society of Tanzania has worked with REPOA, a Tanzania think tank based in Dar es Salaam, a senior researcher in addition to training and providing technical assistance to drafting the Tanzania second 5-year development plan. She works on economic transformation, financial inclusion, women empowerment, value chains and poverty mapping, and was a joint program director of the 5 years research program on Tanzania as a future petrostate, working on the component of data for policy making and public engagement, holds a PhD from Leiden University, a master's MPAID from Harvard Kennedy School. Karibu sana. Karibu sana. Scholastica Kimario, a global thought leader and practitioner, the United Nations already duly introduced, and with our hands, United Nations International Development and Governance Specialist, veteran journalist and gender advocate, specialist in mind, body, energy medicine. I'll see you about that after this event. Founder and Chief Executive, Mahadili Leadership Solutions. Please put your hands together for the very distinguished Mama Scholastica. Karibu sana. Please allow me to pick up a microphone for the 3 of us. I think we will share this one. All right, very well. Okay, that's actually my true voice. Truly honored. Okay, well, most welcome. So, I primed you to pick out 2 particular areas that you both felt were pertinent to our discussion this morning. And I believe you might have done so. Dr. Blandina, I called you up first. 4 main areas. Which areas truly triggered something in you? We've seen that there are some parities somewhere. In others, we've got a long way to go. The thought that 2025 or whatever our target is difficult to reach. Which were the areas that really truly struck you and you think that we really need to work on perhaps? Please use this microphone as I still work on that one. Oh, looks good, yes.
It's okay.
Karibu. Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Thank you so much, Taji. And a lot of thanks to Mama Tem for that great presentation. As you were introducing me, and most of you know, I'm a researcher. So one thing that's struck me most is the data that was shared. And that's where my intervention is going to go. A lot of times when we are informed, and I'm actually really happy with all the testimonies that we had this morning, a lot of time when you see data, 2 things must happen to you. First of all, who collected the data? And then second, who analyzed it? But even importantly, who generated the indicator that ended up being collected? And I think that is very important. We saw the gaps that were shared today. We clapped, and in some places we were hesitant to clap. We were like, that is very low. But my question is, who generated those indicators? Were you invited to generate those indicators? If you were invited, will these be the indicators you would use? So when we talk about gender equity, gender equality, it's very important. And as Mama Temu was presenting, one thing that came very clearly is, it was just around when we had the Millennium Development Goals. Question is, how many people in the room, with the exception of the two maybe ladies who are here, were also engaged in generating the indicators that were used in the MDGs? The indicator that we saw was gross enrollment. What is that? Showing up in class. Do we want that? Or do we want an indicator that tells us the attained skills that are required by all the private sector that is in this room? We all clapped when we saw gross enrollment. But Laurie and Margaret and the lady from NNB, is that good for you? I show up for interview and I tell you, I was enrolled in school. So what? Is that what we want? So for me, I think the part that I really enjoyed a lot was that. It was like, whoa, 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 we've really made a lot of steps. And don't get me wrong, we have, because we never had this data before. So with that, yes, I join everybody and I clap. But when I think a little bit more, I'm like, yeah, there is still some more that we can do. And to make sure that when we're talking about making sure we're not leaving anybody behind, then we are really, really making sure, even when we're talking about, she spoke on issues around the rights, accessing opportunities, accessing resources and all that. It's very important when even we're presenting that information to take on board on what kind of indicators that we are using. Even in our offices, it might be, this is how we do it. Are we ready to change this is how? And we're like, no, this is how it should be done. So that at the end of the day, all of us, was it Standard Chartered that spoke here and we had the 50-50? We were like, whoa, at the top? That's very rare. And then just before she finished presenting, what did we hear about the private sector? So we had an outlier. Outliers. We're happy the outliers are in the room, but in the next meeting, perhaps we want the other outliers who don't have any women. And they tell us what we can do, and then we can work with them. So those are the few things that I picked from the presentation. Thank you so much.
Super. Karibu Mama. And
Asante sana. One thing I took from the presentation, and also from those who spoke earlier, is the fact that progress has been made, yes, but there's a long way to go before progress is made. And I think the other thing I picked from the speakers before the presentation was that everything counts. And from everything they said, they showed a personal commitment by somebody to actually make a difference. And for that reason, I'd like to hereby take the opportunity to highly commend Bizuhura. She should stand so that we look at her again.
Standing ovation.
Because of the energy she puts in, and therefore to congratulate Lindam and all the sponsors who brought us here this morning. I can tell you from experience, if we had been asked to pay, most of us may not have turned up. So it takes personal investment and commitment by men and women. And I'd like to particularly congratulate MSL and the guys, anybody who has set up a daycare center at their workplace. MSD, yeah, MSD. because we didn't clap when MSD said they have a daycare center, and I don't know who else mentioned that. It's a huge, huge investment and important for women, because when a woman can take a child near where she's working, not only does it give her peace of mind to be productive, it also protects violence against babies and children. One of the areas of Beijing is actually to prevent violence against children and women. It's a huge challenge. And therefore, whoever has invested in that, I congratulate them. Now, I want to speak about the personal also, because I look, I'm a mother, I was a girl child, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I can tell you, I see a big difference, not only in the face that Fortunata showed us over 25 years. I see a big difference in my own family. It is going to take each and every one of us. For me, the greatest challenge for gender equality is in the family, because mfumo dume starts at home. Mfumo dume starts at home. And I look at myself, I was the first girl in my village to go to grade 5. Because, yes, and my uncles on my mother's and my father's side were all against us, against my mother and I, and the whole village were. It took a certain Father Joseph Babu, may his ashes rest in peace, to put his foot down and said, if you don't let this girl go to school, you are going to burn in hell. And where I come from, we are Roman Catholics. We believe only Roman Catholics go to heaven. The rest of you are going to go to hell. So when my father and my uncles heard they were going not to go to heaven, they actually agreed. But when they got home, they said to my mother, stupid woman, you did not discipline your girl. You are going to look for the money for her to go to school. So it was only because of Nyerere, when he came up and said, we are going to now pay for school fees, that I was able to go beyond secondary school. Now, over time, I made a personal commitment. But my first child, I have 3 children, 2 daughters and 1 son. My first daughter, they looked at me and said, we don't see Mama at home. We are being asked, homework is being supported by other people. My sisters and my younger brothers. And my first child decided she was not going to work. After finishing university, she stayed at home to look after her children. My grandchildren today honestly do not understand what the fuss is all about. What are we women, fussing about? What does that tell you? We are losing the battle at the personal level in women. Every generation is looking at this thing differently. And it takes very short time for something like the gains, not only are we not going to reach the gains we have made, unless they are protected from the family level, they will disappear very fast. They will disappear very fast. So for me, my message is we really need to increase advocacy for men and women to be fighting for this. Because my concern has been, we tend to promote gender equality from a feminist perspective that misses the point that feminism is not about making women stronger. Women are already strong. Feminism is about changing mindsets so that the strength of women can be perceived as constructive. That men do not see it as many men look at gender equality as a threat to them. And therefore, they are very, very reluctant to come to the party, to come to the table. So we need to increase advocacy. Each one of us should do this at home. If I'm struggling with my grandchildren, because of course they didn't grow up with me, I don't know how you are doing with your grandchildren. But gender equality is a costly affair for women. And the younger women look at us and say, me, I'm not going to work that hard. And they begin to give away, how many of them even work on issues of women? So I really think advocacy needs to go back to say, to continue to inspire men and women to actually come to the table and promote gender equality, knowing that it is an advantage not only to them at the personal level, but to the family and to the nation. I thank you very much for your
Asante. I feel privileged to sit here with you as you say that. Dr. Blandina Kilama, women in power make a difference, do they?
Definitely, they do. And I'll give a small example. So some of the work I think we are most used of hearing is like after a project is done, you always have some sort of an evaluation that you do. Or even before you undertake any project, there is some sort of an assessment that you have to do. Now the question is, if I am a funder, I'm seated next to Mama who used to do that, and I want to allocate funds for a certain project, it's very important for me to have gender considerations. In Tanzania, we say 65% of women are engaged in agriculture. What is our biggest problem when it comes to agriculture? People will tell you it's inputs. And it's not just the soft inputs like you want fertilizer and pesticides and stuff like that. People will tell you we do not have a proper irrigation. And as a funder, you're like, okay, please, how much will it cost you? No. The question should be not only how much will it cost you, but how convenient is this project for both men and women? You just don't want to have, how would you call them, drainage without having places where women can cross to the other side. That might increase your cost, but might be very efficient for the women. Because if you don't put enough small bridges for women to cross over to go to their farms, they will use more time because they have to go around. Just as Mama said, we're women. It's not like we don't want to jump into the bridge, but no, put me a bridge and that will save me time. It saves me time. I'll have time to come and do work with my kids and grandkids, help them with their homework, prepare food, whatever. I can do that. But just because you put up a project and you said you gave money and we're like, I think it's very important we put the bridge. At what time do you think that discussion will come in? It will only come in if women are involved in preparing this project, and they'll be like, they'll point out all these small things. You think they're small, but for them, it's very important in saving their time. That's one area. Now, the second bit, I said I'm from the research side of things. When you collect information, you take all the effort to make sure the indicators you're collecting are covering everybody comprehensively. When Mama Tem was making a presentation, she spoke a little bit around some of the procurement advantages that are around. And then she said, yeah, we have this 30% allocated to youth, women, and people with disability. Right. Then comes my part. So what are the efforts that are made to make sure we're utilizing the 30%? If we say we want all the women to be in groups, okay, Irene is my friend, I want her in my group. But does she believe in a business that I believe in? So it could be by creating that requirement by itself, suddenly Irene is no longer my friend. Because in business terms, Irene and I, we don't relate to the same thing. But should you force me to work with Margaret, maybe she's not my friend, but she's my greatest business partner. Don't tell me to be 10. I will tell you our analysis is showing only women who have the same kind of intellectual understanding of a business should be together. And that's an insight you need to inform you even when you're allocating your resources. At the end of the day, if we are not careful, we will end up saying, bwana, hizi pesa ukipelekaga kwa wanawake hazirudi. Umetutengenezea mazingira ya kuto kuzirudisha. How are we going to return this money? That's one side. Second bit, maybe it's also true, again, on the assessment, I said I'm a researcher, so sorry, I'm taking you through that kind of a discussion. Second bit, and it has both to do with what Mama Scholastica and okay.
We're shining a light on the things you're saying.
Okay, shining some light. Okay. Mama Scholastica, both, and Mama Temu have raised is when we are doing these assessments, we should be bold enough to stand by them. We say data don't lie. But maybe the data is not lying, but you don't want to submit it because somehow it's going to jeopardize the normal business as usual. If the data is showing us right now we are losing women and they're not joining management cause of, let's say, the solution we just had from MSD, there is no breastfeeding room, let's say so. We think that is the solution we learned from the others. If somehow we say we are losing women because we are not allowing them to do complex stuff and we are simply pushing them to do administrative work, if data is showing that, share it. And then it's really empowering. At the end of the day, you will utilize all the women more efficiently and effectively. At the end of the day, it's also going to be less costly. And for any organization, that will be most appropriate. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Asante sana Mama Scholastica. Our hands, ladies and gentlemen. You've had extensive work in country and within Africa. One of the things that struck me during the presentation was, how should I term it? I'm looking at inheritance and land ownership for women. Having been responsible for, I heard, over 23 countries within the African region, Sub-Saharan Africa as well, where did you feel they were doing something right, and what can we learn from them?
Thank you very much. Before I answer that, can I just mention something to do with the data that came out? I see an opportunity, you know. When you look at the women members of parliament, it's really shocking. The ones who go through constituency are very few. The majority actually come from special seats, viti maalum. Now, 2020, Tanzania is actually going to hold national elections, general elections in October. I think one thing we can come out with here as a recommendation and as an actionable point is actually to make sure that each one of us, from whatever vantage point, we encourage and support women to go to parliament from all political parties, from the constituency level, not only from viti maalum. Because it will also, to do that, it will mean we have to mobilize the communities, because they will not vote in women until and unless we make sure we have a special effort to make sure of that. So I thought as an actionable point from the data, if we continue to go like this, there will be fewer and fewer women in parliament. Also bearing in mind the conflictual nature of our politics, it's really very difficult for a woman to go out there and campaign to be elected unless there is special efforts that are made for them.
Well, I'd like to interject there and say you've actually mentioned a problem that doesn't allow, that scares, for example, especially the young women, you've said it yourselves, to be engaged in politics. For those who have to contest and are not allocated with special seats, they look at other women, either in the ruling party or in the opposition, and they see that they're facing a lot of problems. So maybe there's another thing that we need to look at. We need to look at the democratic space and women's participation in it. That is the only way young women can actually go into politics. Otherwise, they're thinking this is too much of a challenge.
I hear you, Mr. Moderator. You know, at my age, I have come to learn that when you want to actually bring about change, you need to start with a space where there is what they call low-hanging fruit. The democratic space in Africa generally, and Tanzania in particular, is very hotly contested. And I actually, I find it very interesting that You know, I was out of the country for 35 years. I always came back home, went to my village, met with my family, but I've been back 3 years, and I am amazed on the one hand in terms of how intimately knowledgeable Tanzanians are on sports, national sports and international sports. Mm-hmm. Now, they know each player, they know the referees. You know, I live in a place, Mbweni, you have all sorts of homesteads. You have shacks, you have people will stay up at night, you know, and bother you with the booming of these TVs because they are watching international matches. And they know exactly what went wrong. Now, I wish Tanzanians would invest as much time and effort to learn about politics. If you belong to a party, you need to know, does that party have an ideological position? Because politics is a game. The game is ideology. Does your party have an ideology? What is it? Mm-hmm. How do you play to win within that ideology? And once you know that, and if I elect somebody, what are their responsibilities for my vote? It is not correct for you and I to vote for somebody who then throws away your votes into the dustbin somewhere and decides to do something else without your permission. And it will only happen when you and I do not participate. So the democratic space has to start with you and I. You see, once we know, and I know Tanzanians can do that. I mean, how can we know sports so intimately and not know politics in the same way? Once we think politics is about the leaders and not about us, we lose the plot. It means we are not in the game. Either you are a fan of Simba or you are a fan of Yanga. These are the two main parties, you know, in the sports area. I don't see Yanga saying to Simba, hey, I want to score there and you are preventing me. Please, can you move aside so that I can score? Simba will laugh at them. By the same token, Yanga cannot say to Simba, I want to do this and you are preventing me. That's the name of the game. And when we know the name of the game, we will actually be able to clear the democratic space. Democracy is participatory. If you don't participate, you've already participated by not participating. It means you are out of the game. Democracy is not won easily. You know, one of the main areas of work for the United Nations, and these days it's more difficult than it was ever before, is actually to support global governance, including electoral mechanisms, yeah? And one of the challenges we have found is the apathy of the people. People are demoralized, yeah? People are scandalized, not only in this country. People have left politics to a few. That is the biggest area of loss. The minute you stop participating is the minute you lose, you know, your space in the gaming area. So to start in the political area is going to be very challenging if you take it from a philosophical perspective. But because there are elections, let's go out there. First of all, let's find out, at least make sure that every political party is fielding women. If necessary, Zuhura, find more sponsors, call us and let's have an agenda that from now to October, we are going to work on nothing else but making sure more women are elected to parliament. It's a very important space to be. Once they are there, participation is 50% of the job done. You see, so that's why I'm starting at participation, because of my awareness that the biggest challenge we have in politics in Africa, let's not talk about other places, is actually non-engagement of the population. And we need women to be in that space, not only because of women, but because women are the mothers, they are community workers, they are the people who look after families. We have the interests of everybody. And after this, after the elections, I would be promoting the idea of having a women's coalition, a coalition of women politicians from all political parties. Because when you look at, you know, there are two types of gender needs. There are practical gender needs, like health, education, water, sanitation, and there are strategic gender needs. For women, it doesn't matter what political party you belong to. We need to have that coalition because we need to break. Right now, there is such bad energy between the political parties. We women need to change that space. These are our husbands. These are our sons. These are our daughters. We need to say, guys, politics aside, you do politics, and then when we come in the house, we are actually people. I believe only women can do that. And let's start by making sure more women go to these political positions and then challenge women politicians to form a women's coalition across parties so we can begin to work through them and with them to change the political and the democratic space. Thank you very much.
Great wisdom. Super. And I think the coalition also deserves a round of applause if you truly put your commitment and energy to it. Now, I'd like to wrap the panel discussion because the first discussants also may have things to say. Mama, please take the mic. I'd like you to still respond on your experience in other areas on land ownership and in inheritance. And at the same time, Dr. Blandina, please make notes on 88 billion shillings with the Vikoba. And I'd like to know in the economic space if that is having any true impact. And is it rural or is it in the urban areas? And how can that truly advance women? Mama, your experience in African countries with land ownership and inheritance.
Thank you very much. The issue of land ownership and inheritance for women is actually one of the most difficult to attain progress. For example, in many societies where you have strong traditional leadership and strong traditional culture, it becomes very difficult for the family, for the clan, to actually agree to apportion land to women. So it then becomes easier maybe for women to acquire land from state land or by buying privately. And that becomes a very important challenge because many women do not have collateral. The other issue is that farming is also a very challenging area, especially farming beneficially, farming from a position of profit. And you will find that in societies which have encouraged smallholder farming, there is actually a higher possibility for household food security than where you have big farmers. But there is not sufficient support for small-scale farmers, peasant farming. And I think it's actually an area which needs both advocacy as well as resources to be made available, including to make it possible for extension workers to actually work with women. And you will find an organization like the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations would bring high-level competent, advisors to advise government. But you find that the resources from national government usually would go to the bigger farmers. And by the time it comes to the, small farmers, it's actually a very different issue. If you look at Kilimanjaro, where I come from, for instance, my daughter really does not qualify to get a piece of land from the Kimario family. But because my father-in-law, may his ashes rest in peace, understood that I was actually a feminist, and for a long time he thought that was not a compliment to his son, which reminds me to tell you ladies, I learned very early that it really takes very courageous men to support a competent woman. And in this case, I don't know Mr. Muro, but I must say, we really need to acknowledge that it takes a very courageous man, a self-confident man to support a powerful woman. And by the same token, as women, we need to make a difference, to understand that, the gender disparities, issues are not going to be resolved in your lifetime, definitely not in one marriage. So we need to have a strategy of what you are going to do at the policy level, what you are going to do at the family level, what you are going to do at the individual level. And when we support, we are guilty, some of us. Once we get these positions, we tend to look down on our male partners, and then they get discouraged, or we make them fearful. We need to also see strategy, I'll come back to the farming issue. My grandmother was a very short woman, and her husband, my grandfather, was a tall, strapling man. But she used to say to us, you know, I used to rub that man on this little finger. How? Nyama ya ulimi, you know? Meaning, you know, nyama ya ulimi. Nyama ya ulimi is, for those who don't know Kiswahili, is loosely translated is the meat of the tongue. It means you learn to have a smooth tongue. You don't lie. You look to see what is in the best interest of this man. If I'm going to do A, B, C, how is it going to be beneficial to him? And then you make him, you know, when they went to meetings, they didn't talk not because they didn't talk. There was also something called pillow talk. Somebody will tell you, no, I'll sleep over it. Sleeping over it means going to consult your wife. She tells you everything clever. And then they go to the meeting, but the man puts these things forward as his ideas. You support him. You come home, you implement, and you are both happy. Now, we need to learn that as well. And I find one of the challenges from a land perspective that we're afraid of, if my daughter actually gets a piece of land, and my father-in-law did give her a piece of land on condition, when she gets married, if she gets married, it goes back to the Kimario family. Why? Because for them, land is a big asset. If you give it to girls and then they get married to another clan, it means you're actually apportioning land to the clan. So you see, there is actually an economic consideration. It's not simply cultural. It's also about resources. So we need to find ways in which some of these things can be mitigated. And then you have kahawa, coffee. It's a cash crop. If now we give girls, and then the boys are saying, but we are getting less land. We are getting less property. So, you know, there is a conflict. Where there is an economic conflict, we need to deal with these issues, not as man, woman, but actually as an issue of vested interest, so that our strategies can also appreciate what are the challenges that people face, men face at the local level, so especially on the issue of land, so that they can also be assured that the land is going to be useful for community and also for the family. Thank you very much.
Many great points. Asante sana. 88 billion is bankable in 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, Taji. Now, I'm sure Irene is also going to speak about that because she works also a lot on issues around financial inclusion. Now, you asked me if it's bankable. A lot of times when you say you get money from Vikoba, the question would be, how organized are you? Do you want quick money or do you want it to work for you long term? Quick money, let's go trading. I put my case to banks, they see where I'm sourcing my things, I come back, I sell, I'm done. So should we clap for you? Maybe or maybe not. Second option, you move into production. And that could be investing in something really big that is going to generate employment for women and men, but it is really long term and it is there to stay. And it will contribute a lot to the economy. So for me, when I see 88 billion, it's good money if it's going to go to production. If it's going to trading, actually we are exporting our jobs. We're exporting extra money. We're exporting our skills for both men and women, young and old, disabled or not. So that would be my short answer to that. So when we do something like that, we should actually never clap for it, but we should ask that extra question. Asante sana.
But we will clap for you. Mama Scholastica, asante sana. These are two amazing women. Let's put our heads together to Dr. Klama. Truly engaging. Asante sana. That was amazing. So much to think about, isn't it? I'd like to welcome the three discussants to the chairs. We are behind time. You were realizing, and I am actually getting quite a few prompts. Oh, the three of you, please. I will introduce you as you come up. Karibuni sana. So your role is to really react to to the presentations that we've heard. Rosemary Mwaipopo holds a PhD in social anthropology. She works with the University of Dar es Salaam, based at Mwalimu JK Nyerere Mlimani campus. Her teaching and research specialization are in gender, women and gender relations, as gender and culture, social diversity, equity and public policy, people and poverty eradication, people and natural resources management, focusing on land and women in artisanal and small-scale mining, and small-scale fishing communities in coastal Tanzania. She has written and published on a number of topics on gender and women in Tanzania. Please acknowledge your presence at the table. Dr. Eva Hawasinare, known for leading legal expertise in Tanzanian commercial corporate law, banking, project finance, capital markets, and commercialization arbitration, with experience of more than 27 years. Prior to practicing, she was the Presidential Parastatal Sector Reform Commission's senior legal advisor for privatization of public corporations, and before that she was the Director of Legal and Institutional Affairs of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. Mama, courtesy tukushangilia nawe pia vile. Finally, also seated, allow me to quickly go over, introduced and noted as Dr. Blandina was speaking, is Irene Madeje Mlola with the FSDT, extensive experience in that area. Mama, allow me to introduce you just before you speak, that Irene. Is the Operations Director at the Financial Sector Deepening Trust Tanzania, an organization that aims to develop financial sector market systems that benefit underserved individuals, households, and enterprises by supporting innovations and market interventions. A pioneer in the gender financial inclusion agenda in Tanzania, she's worked closely with the National Council for Financial Inclusion to ensure women and youth are articulated and prioritized in the national strategy. Allow me to leave it at that, and allow me to bring this microphone over to you and allow each of you to selectively choose a specific area you wish to speak about on the presentation, and of course the panelists. Karibu sana. Nianze na mama katikati, if you don't mind.
Katikati?
Yes.
Asante sana. Should I stand? I would like to stand. I must thank Fortunata for a very, very good presentation, really. I'm not very active in women papers and research, but I learned a lot from her presentation. I was interested in 3 areas. One is the data that she showed on women violence, domestic and different types of violence against women. And this brings me back to an experience that I had last month. A young lady I supported, she was my house girl, she trained herself, worked in an office, trained herself, became a secretary. Now she is back administrative officer in one of the banks in Tanzania. She got married. I was very involved in preparations for her wedding. But then her husband beat her very, very badly. She was bleeding in the face and all that. So we had to go to the police. And I was very happy to find that they now have a gender desk that actually addresses issues that relate to violence against women. And this was an improvement because personally, in 1976, I was beaten very badly by my then husband, and I ran to the police station and they refused to take a statement from me, saying that is family affairs. So we've come far from 1976 to now. There are these gender desks in our police stations, and I think it's an improvement. But I got interested in this and say what needs to be improved is the training of those police officers who are given the assignment to deal with them. I could see areas where a lot of training needs to be done. So what is to be done in the future, I think we have to concentrate on improving the training so that they are there to assist the women. So I was very happy, and I can say in terms of development, that's an improvement in the system itself. The second area that I got interested in is inheritance rights for women. We have been doing presentation on why it is so important that couples should talk about writing wills. Is because Tanzania has different succession laws depending on whether you are Muslim or non-Muslim, or whether your marriage or your marriage was done under customary law. That determines how you inherit if your husband dies. Usually the problems are when widows are left behind. The widower issue is a problem, but not that much. Now, if you are Muslim, your inheritance, the inheritance is regulated by Islamic law, and that is recognized in our Judicature and Application Act that recognized Islamic law as the basis for inheritance. And that means if you're a woman, you get 1/8 of the inheritance, and sons get 2/3, girls get 1/3, parents and other relatives get 1/6. But if there are no children, then the woman is entitled, the widow is entitled to 1/4. Now, Islamic law cannot be changed because it's actually based in the Quran. So even the 2016 law of the child could not really, on other laws, cannot change the Islamic inheritance procedures that are there now. If you're Christian and European or whatever it is, then your inheritance is regulated by the India succession law, which gives a lot of room for, if you write a will, to make changes in terms of how you want to leave your property behind. But if you're a woman, you are entitled to 1/3. If your children are entitled to 2/3, and they actually are entitled equally. And then your relatives and all that 1/3. But if there are no children, you are a woman, you get half of the assets. So that your rights are regulated by the law that applies to your inheritance. Customary law is the most unequal in it, because if it ranks the first son from the first house, because there could be different wives in a household, the first son from the first house gets more. Then all the other sons are ranked number 2, and then the daughters are ranked 3. And even the level of inheritance is different. In many tribes, you cannot inherit from clan land as such directly. So what can you do? What we've been advocating among lawyers and other women groups is to encourage husbands and wives to write their own wills. It's very, very easy to do that. If you're a Muslim, the distribution does not change that much. But you know, a small thing like where a person is to be buried, especially if where the husband is to be buried, that can get an entire clan up in spin, quarreling, burials delaying. We had a neighbor 2 weeks, he couldn't be buried because the widow wanted him to be buried in Dar, and some of the children wanted him to be buried in his home village, only to find out after 2 weeks that he had left a will, and that resolved the issues. So in terms of inheritance, I think we should at least advocate for people to know what these different inheritance laws are, but also how can you mitigate some of those issues. And I'm looking forward to further opportunities to discuss with women and men as well, to understand the importance of these inheritance laws, succession laws, but also how it is that it's so important that you should do a will. And it's very easy to draw a will, only that a lot of people are not interested in it. It's not in our culture, and also they think it's difficult, but it's very easy. The third issue that I looked at is something that by the way, I used to teach law at the University of Dar es Salaam. So when I came back after 10 years, I also was teaching part-time at the university. I was teaching investment law, trade and investment law. And I had asked that the class be 60 students. I found that I had 250. When I was studying, we used to have 30 students in a class of law. And there I was teaching 250 in a class. You don't even know them by name. But also, if you are a teacher, you know that the reception is different in terms of capacities of the students themselves. They are slow learners, they are middle level learners, and they are very, very quick learners. And you need to be able to interact with them in order that you are, so that you are satisfied that the impact is received. So education, when I was looking at the figures that Fortunata was showing us, it shows we have developed basically. But the issue is the value, the quality. There is room, if you look at it, for improving the quality of it. And then I was also looking at the figures about the parity of students from secondary to, you can see that the figures are dropping. And we are saying, what is it that we can do for future? We can advocate for improvement of the quality. That depends on the resources that are available. But I get notifications of a lot of programs, and I'm sure a lot of you also do. A lot of scholarships, programs that are run internationally that are available for people. How much or where, how can we tap into those and send as many women as possible to these programs? Una za Commonwealth za Queen Elizabeth II, we have Obama and Michelle, we have so many of these programs. The question is, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to tap into those. Can we say, is there a way of using some of these forums to get 100, 200 of these students to go out to do? Because some of these are fully funded. Can we do that? Why? Because for me, education is everything. It actually impacts your creativity. It impacts your usefulness in terms of productivity. It impacts innovation, but also it impacts the health of a country. The less the quality, the less the ability to lead. And that affects our quality of life altogether. So for me, if you're thinking, what do we do next? Education, education, education. Sorry.
Excellent, Kabisa Mama. Eve Hawasinare, absolutely fantastic discussant. Since you're holding the mic, may we bring you now to the discussion. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So a quick reflection of today. Today started with a very high note, with the testimonies that were coming mainly from the private sector and few public sectors. I was seated there and listening to the many things that are actually happening in these different organizations. They are not just talking about stories, but they are citing some of the real things that are happening and changing, impacting on the women and their ability to actually participate well at the workspace and as well as the social. That was really good. And then eventually when we got into the presentation, it was with mixed feelings. Mixed feelings from the fact that we had a lot of good progress, very good progress that has happened over the last 25 years, but really there was one note there that says it will take more than 80 years to actually be able to correct some of the inequality that is happening with the right momentum that is happening. So that's really saddening, being a woman myself. So let's really go back into the data. What did we really see? What did we hear? We heard a lot of access, you know? So it means the voices have been raised and actions is starting, but we are seeing more of access indicators, such as the one that we just finished talking about, the number of girls and women. But really, we need to see the real value that is actually coming in from access to impact indicators. I'm actually from financial inclusion background, and that's my job, my passion. And if you look at the level of literacy and numeracy gap between men and women, it is actually day and night. You know, you see a clear gap that is actually emerging, and then you're starting to unpack the reason why you're actually seeing different level of participation in the financial sector between men and women. So definitely more intentionality, such as the one that we actually heard from the testimonies that were heard earlier today, is actually needed. And how do we do intentionality? It's just by basically having a deeper understanding of the underlying and complexities that are actually surrounding a girl child or a woman. One thing that I actually didn't hear a lot today is the issues of social norms and culture complexities, because these are some of the underlying issues that are actually facing a girl child, and hence limiting her ability to actually be able to participate well in class and be able to excel, and then be able to be at the same parity level with the peers in the class. So just to cite a little bit from the financial inclusion, what did we see over time? You see access indicators, you know, more people are actually actively participating in the financial sector. Changing exclusion from 65 to now inclusion 65%. But 3 years ago we said, hey, let's go deep into this number and see, you know, between men and women, is it really the same thing? And that is when we started to really see the difference. You see completely a 10% gap between the access of women and the access of men. And then if you go to more meaningful access, the ones that is actually able to assist people to really drive their businesses so that they can actually improve their livelihood, banking access and access to loans and capital into business, that's when you're actually seeing a deeper gap. Now, when I say intentionality, we move from just saying access right to really go deep and understanding the underlying issues and try to innovate around it, because issues such as land, I was seated here and I was listening to the presentation as well from Mama Kimario. These are complex issues that we're not going to be able to resolve overnight. So if the financial sector is just going to sit and wait for women to have land so that they can give them loans because they'll have collateral, that's definitely going to take 80 years, because that's not going to happen. What are we going to do with the women of today who need to actually be able to be active in the economy? And so that the need of finances is critical to be able to assist them in that. Then that's where the innovation has to come in. And the innovation is to see what are the alternative collaterals that we can actually bring, you know, so that how does the bank or the financial sector, the financial services providers, understand these issues, and how do they innovate around it so that you can be more intentional to actually help a woman to be able to have access to capital so that they can actually be able to improve. So things like that's when I mean we become intentional. We just don't take things at face value and say that some of the things are actually difficult to be able to achieve. I also like this Mama Fortunata presentation very much, especially despite her picture. That was really very good for reflection. But the last but one slide, because they asked the women, they asked people, what is the number one thing that we should have? And we should have more women in the position of power. That is very important. I am a firm believer that it takes both of us. And you know, even Mama Kimario sat here and said that it took a man to actually be courageous and to trust in her to be able to push. And I believe in that. But we need more voices of women, because in Swahili we say aisimulia mvua imemnyea. So the person who really knows what it needs, the people who have to be on the front line, together with the men who are courageous. You know, we need more women in the position of power. So I'm a firm believer that we need to rally, and I second the movement that I heard from Mama Kimario, and the task that has actually been given to Madam Zura. We definitely need to make sure that we speak of this, we encourage more people to come out, more women to come out, so that they can actually show up and participate and be active members in our government. And as for the private sector, you know, we already have the champions. We need to have those voices elevated. We need more of the private sector innovating in the different small things, but they're very impactful, to make sure that we are having women feeling safe to actually be active members at the workplace, as well as being economic partners in the world. This is an economic game. It's not just we're saying, you know, the whole world is actually recognized. 26% of the world GDP will improve if we get both men and women actively participating in the workforce. We've heard the numbers for Tanzania. $110 million of GDP will actually improve. So that's really what we're talking about. We're not just talking about just bringing a woman. We're really talking about having development in our country. Last but not least, I was tasked by Dr. Blandina to talk a little bit about what does it really mean to have the 88 billion money in the Vikoba system. We already see that is really where women are, that's where women are participating. But what value is that having? Definitely, it has actually started something. It is a very good start. It's a mechanism to which women are feeling safe to participate, and they are able to smoothen. And I'm actually using the word smoothen because when you talk of development and something that will make a difference to people's life, you need to talk about investment, you need to talk about growth. So that mechanism is really allowing them in a very informal way to actually be able to participate, to send their children to school, to be able to respond to shocks, which are needed, because if you didn't have that one, you'll fall back into poverty, farther down into poverty. But how do we now use that as an avenue to actually be able to connect them? We know the financial system, the way it works, is like you need to intermediate into a much bigger bubble. You cannot just be in a small bubble of 20 people. You have your money, you lock it in a box. Because now we're talking about the majority of the Vikobas, which are actually in the rural sector. You have that money seated in the box. So it's actually, there's a saying in Swahili, say, mnazungushiana umaskini. So it's just within a very small bubble. You need to break out, and to go into the formal economy, you're able to intermediate with a much bigger economy. Then you will be able to inject more capital and then be able to put it into productive capital. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Excellent. Wonderful listening to you. Mama Mwaipopo, karibu sana.
Thank you. And let me start by thanking Zuhura and Lindam for this opportunity. And for me, I just wanted to say that one of the things that we are doing today is celebrating achievements, seeing how we can protect our gains, but also addressing what barriers are existing. So one of the things that also my colleagues have said is that we can't avoid saying, yes, we've come a long way from Beijing in 25 years. But the other thing is also we need to realize that we are not having it as a smooth ride. And therefore, we need actually to ask critical questions. Are we really making it? But the other thing is that we are making it for whom? What does gender equality mean? For what woman and at what level? We have the generation gap, we have the young, but we also have the elderly women, which haven't spoken about them today. And then how are we engaging? So congrats for all of us, and I think the private sector was exceptionally quite valuable today, and particularly for those who actually touched on what certain women need to make life better. Now, Taji, let me start with the last discussant on the economy. That was one thing that interested me very much, and particularly when you talk of Vikoba. I've worked with the Vikoba women at the grassroots for quite a long time. And I wonder how we make sense of how they make sense about the Vikoba. And that is what we as practitioners need to do and take on board to get them where they should be. For them, Vikoba sometimes, it's not only about the money. It's not about the savings. It's about their ability to engage and create something of their own. It is them. For them who know how Vikobas are started, they're very different from the WDF kinds of groups. They do their own rules, their own constitutions, and if you ask them, the first thing is that they belong. They are empowered and they own and can set the rules. That is one thing that Tanzania has to be very proud of. And for rural women, that is what they speak about. Tunaenda kwa kikoba changu kwa sababu ni changu na cha wenzangu kibaki. The money comes later. And actually vikoba so much in the urban, not even more in the rural. So one thing that I wanted for us to take it as a point in mind is that how do we make sense of what other women talk about their gendered experiences, and how can they cushion these 25 years after Beijing, which I thought Fortunata also brought it out very well. And then the other thing that interested me also was on education. I was very interested in the numbers on education, and it takes me back to what Blandina said, probably, how do we talk about the numbers? Yes, we've gone a long way, but who protects the numbers? That is what we need to question. At the University of Dar es Salaam in the late 1990s and 2000s, we had initiated a special entry for girls in the sciences, because the sciences, as you know, are very, very difficult. The laws, management, social sciences are 50 and even beyond. And there was a 2% sort of kind of preferential entry clause, but in 2010, TCU dissolved that clause, saying that there are so many universities at Tanzania now, so at least the playing field has been leveled. Girls should compete and go for sciences as men do. What happened was that after that clause had been dropped, the entry of enrollment of girls in the engineering dropped from 30-something to 12, 20. Now it's struggling somewhere there, which means that we sometimes are very wary of protecting the gains that address certain women, because we don't ask questions. Why do certain policies come, and what are their value, and for whom? And therefore we lose the gains, and because of certain, ideas here and there. So the other thing is also about the laws. We talked about, Fortunata has talked very well about the girl child. And one of the things that I think as practitioners we need to make is how do we make sense of rural boys and girls who decide to marry each other, not out of poverty, but that's the only way out. And where does the marriage law make sense to those people there? It's not about culture, it's about social reality. So how do the private sector, for example, and which were very good, empowering, mentoring, and how do they bring in the context that people live, so that the gender equity experiences should actually be taken on board by all of the people everywhere? So, as an ending note, I think I really liked Taji Liundis, who says, let's open up the democratic space. My advice would be, we need to change the playing field ourselves. We can influence policy. We should create our rules of engagement and see how can we make a difference, and then influence policy. Because sometimes policy actually is informed by what is happening in the ground. And therefore, as women, and as the men who are probably our partners here, I think we need to change the playing field by creating our own rules of engagement and create a more gender equitable Tanzania. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Dada zangu Irene, Mama Rosemary, Mama Eva, fantastic discussions. Nashukuru sana sana sana. Now I'm going to take the mic over to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we're late, but I'm really happy to see everyone is still here, because the issues are really boiling and they're really interesting. So may I now... Yes, I was coming to say, please follow me. Well, thank you very much. All right, so over to you, ladies and gentlemen. Your hands, your comments, testimonies, whatever it is you wish to contribute. Let's do this for the next 10 minutes or so. If we have quick hands, quick remarks, please introduce yourself, and if you wish to address anybody or some of the comments or the presentation before we get back to the wrap-up by the first presenter, the keynote addresser. Karibuni sana. I'm just going to drop these mics in people's hands. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Safi kabisa.
Thank you. My name is Natu Mwamba from the University of Dar es Salaam. It's a bit cold, so it's getting coarse, my voice, but don't mind it. I thank all presenters and discussants. It was extremely interesting. There's a lot to talk about, but I'll just focus on one thing. Maybe in order to be able to attain or achieve, I think we agree we have different levels of women. Women in the rural and women in the top executive that we have this little pamphlet here are different. So I like to focus on the ones that we are talking about, the top level kind of. And I think one thing that has been an hindrance, and it has been talked about and identified as the confidence gap, it is real. The confidence gap is real and it has to be attained. And one thing that makes us women, that we really need to come out of this confidence gap, is we need to move out of our comfort zone. We are so comfortable in that little corner there that you don't want to step out. You really need to step out of your comfort zone, and that goes to all levels. You need to do things that you thought you could not, but definitely you can, and you can attain them. And that goes also to, I can touch the lower level. You are always a mama ntilie. You can change and start selling vegetable, have a stall. That's out of your comfort zone, but you can. So the issue relating confidence and comfort zone is important. And one thing that we should also clearly see is the aspect of appreciation and recognition. That makes a hell of a difference. And what was spoken by the testimonies, I think, is excellent. And I would say, as Blandina and Rose, we who also do research, I can see a lot of aspects or even forums for doing research and also providing some real answers. Because if you are not informed, you'll also make decisions sometimes which are out of place. We have seen all the nursing places MSD has, NMB has. So it's nice to come up and look at what is the impact of this. I think somebody from the banking system has talked about different kind of products. These were different products. And yeah, very interesting products. So what is the impact of those products? Because you need to look from the supply and demand side. The demand side is kind of covered. Those are the people who need. But the supply side are these products, focused, targeted products that will make a woman at ease to do a lot of things in the financial sector. So thank you so much.
Very good points. Thank you very much. Asante sana. Karibu.
Thank you. My name is Emma Kawawa. I'm the CEO of Tanzania Women's CEO Roundtable. Well, my comment is more about what we are celebrating and the organizers. Well, it's more a comment and the theme. As you look into the theme, we say, collectively, we can play part of it. All that the presenters have said, we all totally agree. But my face back to the audience or to the participants, did we see the women who are giving out testimonies, who are talking here, the age difference? Did we see that? It shows that education is continuous, does not matter age. Two, what are we doing to leave behind, the legacy behind? Some of them have retired already in the government sector, in the private sector, in the UN services. What are they doing now? They are trying to do an impact to us. Can we all be doing the same? Last, we're talking about networking all the time we meet in conferences. We're talking about networking, collaborations, and how do we collaborate? These are the things we need to do to bring us so that we can break the gaps, the barriers. If we don't speak the same language, because we are different in different ways, but we need different players to speak to each other more often, because I'm saying more often because this is one, after another 1 year, maybe, or another once in a year. We need to speak more often, have more time, small groups, bigger groups, round tables, big tables, conferences, stages, to have this so that we can make a change. This is all what I have to say. Thank you.
I totally agree with you. Asante sana. Those were our two hands. We have a hand at the table over there. Please introduce yourself and please continue.
Thank you very much. My name is Eleanor Bagaine Masood. I am a mother of 2 amazing girls, and I come from a family with very strong and powerful women. And all that is thanks to my father, because he opened that door for us. Now, I'd just like to say something about equality and equal opportunity vis-a-vis women empowerment. A very good friend of mine said, the problem with the world that we live in today is we are so busy empowering women and nobody is taking the time to prepare the men for the empowered women that we are creating. So I would like to first of all commend, and if you can all join me, clap for all the men in the room today. We've said so many things about women and how we can make this world a better place by putting them where they need to be. And one of the speakers clearly pointed out that we can't do this without having the men alongside us. It was also very clearly stated that we need courageous men to support the empowered women. I can say that I know Mr. Muro, and trust me, he is every bit courageous. So I'd just like to say that while we are busy empowering women, let's not forget our counterparts. And I'd like to thank, I don't know if there's anybody here that's part of the Kipepeo project. I think that that has gone a long way in trying to build the confidence of the girl child. But while we do that, can we also look at what projects we have for the boy child alongside empowering the women and preparing the men for the empowered women? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Asante sana. All right, your hands. The gentleman in the room, you've been acknowledged. Anyone wants to make a comment? No? All right, I'll move around the room. Table to table from the front, moving backwards. All the way to the back. Oh, yes, do we have a hand? Karibu sana, asante.
Asante. Thanks a lot. My name is Aisa Muya, a medical doctor and public health specialist. I work with AMREF. First of all, I really want to acknowledge that I've been so impressed with all the presentations today. And they were quite very remarkable. When Mama Kimari was speaking, I almost had tears because her story reminds me of the story which my grandmother used to tell me all the time, how she fought for my mother to go to grade 5 when she was selected. And all the family members were thought, because her siblings, her sisters, also went through, they were selected, but they did not go. But when my grandmother in the village met one of the, I don't know, wazee wa kanisa, and he told him how it's important to educate a girl. So she fought for my mother to go to grade 5, and thereon she continued with her education. She was one of the first girls to be also selected to go to high school in New Zealand, and that's where I was born as well. So anyway, from there on you can see that has been passed on. So when my grandmother, who is now passed away, rest in peace, she said whenever she sees us and all her grandchildren, the girls, I mean we are 4 girls. One of my sister just passed away 3 years ago, but we were born 4 girls. She says she always cries and cries whenever during her graduations, and she cries because she sees that's her product. So one of the things she used to tell, go get educated and get a good job, please. I mean, she kept on telling each of their grandchildren, especially the girls. But one of the things I want to say is, for now, we should not tell our children to be comfortable of getting a good job and get employed. We should tell them that they should get good education and have impact, positive impact to the society in terms of health, self-discipline, commitment, hard-working, self-reliance, and make sure that they can contribute. Not only get a good job in a very good institution and be a CEO and relax, but you can be self-reliant, you can have your own initiative and innovative and be creative to have something which has impact to the society. And that's what women can contribute now. So thanks a lot. That's what I wanted to share.
Asante, Mamoya. Much appreciated. We have another 2 good minutes. Anybody wants to wrap it from the floor? Okay. I know what that means. May I appreciate your participation with your hands. Asanteni sana kwa wale ambao mmechangia, for those who've contributed. And now I'll take it right back to our keynote speaker. May you please join me at the podium, Mama Fortunata Temu. Now, when we started out, I'd called you up to speak, but I had not introduced you properly. She's the managing director at Viva Legacy, has 20 years of experience in development management as a consultant, as a legal practitioner, facilitator and trainer, research advisor and manager of development programs. She's a businesswoman in investments in the hospitality industry. Sasa Mama Temu, I know our key area, the thematic area that we were discussing today is people in power, in areas of influence. But we've noted that it's not just at the very top, it starts at different levels. At a family level, we've been told, with children and teaching them that education is important. Those are the formative things that we're supposed to be considering for people getting to influential positions to be able to impact. So as you wrap up, we'd be looking forward to the way forward as well, and looking at how all the discussions today have panned out, and your reflections on them after your presentation. Karibu-san.
Thank you very much. Let me start first of all by acknowledging the genuine demonstration of commitment that is in the room. There is a lot of energy, there is a lot of commitment from all those who were able to provide their testimony. There's a lot that you are doing, and because of that, we need to protect all the gains, however small, that we have made. That is first thing that I have observed. Secondly, we also need to engage in advocacy for change of mindset, for change of attitudes, change in negative social norms. But before we do that, we must also have evidence base. What is working, what is not working, so that we can advocate not only for change of mindset, but also for change of a better operating environment in terms of policies, in terms of legal frameworks and the like. And another thing, we must also look at ourselves. We heard about managing our affairs. We heard about writing wills. People have this notion that if you write a will, it's like you're predicting your own death, but that is not the case. We really need also to manage our own affairs by writing wills. And in that way, we will be able now to mitigate some of the eventualities which we saw that they are not really helpful. Another thing which I have observed is that we also need to collaborate more. We need more such events. What Lindam has shown is that we really need such kind of forums to share, to motivate each other, so that little by little we will have bigger gains. And lastly, we should also focus on skills. We heard about education, enrollment is not good enough. We need skilled people, and you as actors in the private sector, I believe you really need skilled people, and you know how important it is to have skilled manpower. And we were given a tip. There are so many scholarships out there. So we should now try to see how we can gather this information and not stay with it, but transmit it to other people who need it. And having said this, I want to wish you ahead of time Happy International Women's Day. And I thank you.
Asante sana for the wrap up and also for the pre-wishes for the 8th. Ladies and gentlemen, we would love to acknowledge our sponsors once again. Let's put our hands together to all of them, and of course our streaming partners. I'm receiving a lot of messages from different parts of the world watching this session, and they're truly enjoying it. May I please request the Secretariat to step up to the podium, please, so that we can continue with the second part. Rukaya, please. We've done the wrap-up, and we now like to do the certification and the vote of thanks. So I hope you've enjoyed this very much. We may mention the sponsors, but Lindam and Mama Zuhura, congratulations, kweli. This is truly commendable. One of the points that I heard was, let's not do it just once. Maybe we should continue. So please take a look at the pamphlets at table, and please leave with those and read through those. Those are very, very important and critical. Karib sana. And I have the partners on stage. Yeah, okay. Will you give a vote of thanks first, and then we do the certifications, eh? Okay, yeah? Congratulations for the good work as the Secretariat.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I begin, I would like to give all the praise to our Almighty God for making today's occasion a success. I deem it a great honor and privilege to give the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. As we continue to mount effort for gender equity, we need not forget how much progress has been made. We should not fail to recognize that women today have opportunities that our mothers and grandmothers could only have dreamed of. I think we should all celebrate that, and this is an important opportunity to do so. That being said, on behalf of my colleagues at Lindam Group Limited, I would first and foremost like to give a big thank you to our sponsors for their generous contributions towards making this event a success. Please give a round of applause as I mention them. KCB Bank Limited, NMB Bank, TICS Tanzania, and MultiChoice Tanzania. I must as well, with profound gratitude, mention our deep sense of appreciation to our keynote speaker, Ms. Fortunata Temu, for her insightful presentation at the seminar today. We are all inspired by your great words. The speech you made reminded me of the words by Emma Watson, the UN Women Goodwill Ambassador. I quote, "It is time that we all see gender as a spectrum instead of two sets of opposing ideals. We should stop defining each other by what we are not and start defining ourselves by who we are." Allow me to also thank the panelists and the first-line discussants for sharing their views and enlightening us on the gender gap and how we can collectively play a part and direct efforts at closing it. We are proud of the great achievements you have made. As a woman and as a millennial, I must say I could not be any happier for this movement of having a gender-equal Tanzania. Last but not least, I thank all the distinguished invitees present here for accepting our invitation and being part of this breakfast seminar. Also, I owe a special gratitude to the team at Lindam Group Limited, who have worked hard to ensure that this occasion becomes a memorable success. Thank you. I will now call our sponsors and would like you to come on stage and receive your certificates for appreciation. KCB Bank Limited. NMB Bank.
Please take your certificate and remain for a good photo.
Tanzania International Container Terminal Services Limited, TICS.
Stay for the group photo.
MultiChoice Tanzania Limited.
Group picture. I think you should stand in the middle, actually. Let's move this way. Okay, there we go. Super. Our actually CSR keynote presenter in our discussions. All right, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you. Congratulations. Lauren.
Thank you very much. Now we will call upon our contributors, keynote speaker and the discussants, Ms. Fortunata Temu. Ms. Scholastica Kimario. Dr. Blandina Kilama. I think
This one? Should be in every photo, actually.
Dr. Eve Hawa Sinare. She's trying to. Dr. Rose Moipopo. Mrs. Irene Mlola. Last but not least, Mr. Taji Liundi.
Oh. That doesn't usually happen.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This doesn't usually happen. I don't get it.
Perfect. Yeah, the people who have you did so wow. I appreciate it.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Yes,
Fantastic.
but I mean, just to say the contribution.
Now I know Lindam, and I'm your mama. I didn't do well with time today. Lakini, seeing that we are almost still at capacity, the engagement was so high, the interest, the points, the intellectual inputs were so strong that I think I'm going to ask Mama to just dismiss the fact that we didn't do it the way you usually do it. This has been an amazing, a fantastic success. To pige makofi kwa mara nyingine tena. Let's put our hands together. This is very well done. I know we're over an hour beyond, but this has been very well done. And I'm truly proud to also get a certificate. I usually don't get one for anything that I do. Would some of you please join us for a group photo? Please feel free to volunteer. Just come up, please, so that we can remember the pre-event. Karibuni, thank you, kina mama. Appreciate it. At any other table, kina baba pia this time, at least take a picture. Karibuni sana, please. May I please welcome members of the audience to come through with the picture. Those who spoke, please come through. Everybody who put in a word, Mamangu, tafadhali, please come forward. Wakina mama, karibuni mbele. Ladies, come out front. Let's take a picture. Let's remember the day together. Let's fill the stage all the way to the bottom. This is looking good. Some of you may even sit down on the chairs if you like.